So we're live. Let's have a look what's going on here. Brilliant. All right. Hello there, everyone. My name is Tafsir. I'm part of Medmentor, and today we are carrying out our weekly Medmentor live sessions that occur 6 to 7 p.m. every Saturday, and we're going to be talking about everything from medical school applications to life as a medical student and the medical field to things that you guys just need help with in general when applying to med school and thinking about it in general. What we want to do is make getting into med school easier for you guys and hopefully make that free as much as possible thanks to our team's work at Medmentor. So please do check our website out for our latest blog post. Check out our social media for our content that we put out there. And there's a few big things coming soon, so bear that in mind as well. So yeah, as I mentioned, my name is Tafsir. I'm a final year medical student at UCL. I've been part of the UCL interview panel, interviewing medical students and helping and basically them seeing them get into med school, which has been lovely. And I've also been a mentor at the UCL Target Medicine program for the last 6 years, helping kids from year 12 get into med school by mentoring them through the application process. So I have a bit of experience over the last few years of what's best to do and what's not to, and a bit of expertise here or there that I can hopefully impart to you guys. So please do drop your questions below, either through question cards or in the comments, and we can discuss those things, and that'll be lovely. So let me just have a look at the Instagram chat, and I can see another aspiring medic. Hello, hey, welcome back. Nice to have you back. Amy, hello, hey. Good to see you on. Geeky Meds has joined us as well, and we've got a few others on the live. Tyler and Nia and Olive Keach as well, and Lindell. Hey guys, if you have any questions, drop them below, and I'll try my best to get them answered. So let's go. Today we're also live on we're live on the Instagram channel, we're live on Twitter, live on YouTube, and on our Medmentor website. So whichever way is easiest for you to get us on your kind of feed, feel free to do so, and do share our work with people that you know applying for medical school. That'll be brilliant. So have a look at your thought process and see if we have any questions. How's your weeks been in terms of med applications? Have you guys been studying for exams? Have you guys been interview prepping? Have you guys been thinking about UCAT or BMAT? Anything of the sort, drop us below. I think before I start now any live session, I'd like to caveat all my answers regarding medical school interviews with please make sure that you read the med school interviews book made by the ISC, because that is brilliant. It's like the Bible of medical interviews. Have a read of that before you think twice about anything else, and hopefully from there you can take it. So let's have a look. So on the comments below, anyone want to talk about a topic that they've seen in the news recently regarding medical healthcare, whether that be through vaccine stuff, through medical technologies, anything of the sort? What are your thought processes on the vaccine rollout to 40 to 49-year-olds right now? Any thoughts on that? I think and the fact that we're reopening schools, I think that'll be definitely good for the bunch of you guys that do go to school on our live sessions. Are you looking forward to it? And do you think that'll be good enough to keep COVID out? That's the issue. Brilliant. Okay, so have a look. Okie doke. So I think last week we had a few questions about UCAT and BMAT. And one of the general questions that I get this time of year from my mentees is, when should I start preparing for the UCAT? And what I mentioned last week is what I'd echo today as well, is that I definitely recommend use a good amount of time revising for these admissions tests, because they're really important on in terms of how to rank you guys before you get selected for interview. And so a lot of the times the UCAT and the BMAT is the barrier to entry for most medical school applicants, because it's such difficult and different exams. So what I definitely encourage you to do is take about 3 to 4 weeks out to revise for these exams separately, and make sure that you step it up as you go on every week when you revise for UCAT and BMAT. And there's loads of resources out there, and if there's any specific questions regarding them, feel free to drop them below. Brilliant. So another aspiring medic goes, I've seen that there are at-home smear tests being trialed out. Oh, I've seen that article too. That's a very interesting article. So I did my obs and gynae placement again 2 months ago, and I saw how important it is to get cervical smears done. And in this current climate, they've been trialing out at-home tests for cervical smears, and that's been really good. And apparently, the accuracy rates or like diagnosis rates have been very similar to a medical professional doing it. So if that's something that is possible, that will save a lot of time for people, for women in reproductive ages, from having to go into the GP and get that done invasively, and it's quite an intimate exam as well. So if someone can do that, if a woman can do that at home themselves, I think convenient for all sides, let alone in this pandemic. So that's a very good thing to be trialing out. I think that's brilliant. Amy goes, I think COVAX got delivered to Ghana earlier this week. Yes, it did. So with my global health hat, I was very glad to see that. There's not many countries in the world who are who are getting access to COVAX, which is what it's called right now. Brilliant. I think there's only 2 countries in Africa that have access to it, but it's a good start. It's better than nothing at this moment in time, unfortunately. And what are your thoughts? Like, should we be keeping all our vaccines in these developed countries because we can buy it earlier than everyone else and keep it here? Or should we be sharing them equitably amongst all the nations in the world? This is a common global health question. And from my point of view, obviously, from a utilitarian point of view, you want to be sharing it out. But when you think about the way our world works, society and capitalism intertwined with the healthcare system, is that actually, if you can eradicate a condition in your country, you would want to do that first, compared to going to another country and eradicating it there first. And that's not me saying that that's from a political standpoint, because at the end of the day, the ultimate decision comes from the politicians and the governments, and they influence decisions made by the UN and the WHO, and they are not accountable by countries around the world. They're held accountable by their voters. And a lot of the time, I think what happens here is that, yes, it's quite easy to just keep the vaccines for yourself and basically sort your country out before anyone else. And obviously, we can see at firsthand the effects of an epidemic with how difficult things have been in terms of the economic circumstance and the knock-on effects on people's health and other types of health, and including mental health as well. So that's something to bear in mind. Yes, another aspiring medic goes, I think it's also great for women who don't have much time to get an appointment. Very, very true. And that's extremely important due to the importance of being tested as early as possible. Yes, cervical cancer is really important to be tested for. And those are huge benefits. So another aspiring medic, that's a really good article to be thinking about. Glad to see it. Hey, okay, so I've got a question from Olive. If I've said that right, I'm sorry if it's all. Yeah, that's fine. Olive goes, do you have any tips on how to revise for the UCAT? So yes, I do. What I'd recommend is to get a UCAT textbook to help you. Well, I used the textbook 6-7 years ago. I think there's better website and online resources out there right now. So I used a Kaplan book that helped me get my head around the exam itself, the types of questions, the exam technique needed to use, and I started practicing them in the first week. Spent about a couple of hours on a few evenings doing that in the first week. After that, then I started increasing the workload for my UCAT revision, started doing practice questions from UCAT books and online stuff. And then towards the end of the few weeks, I started doing questions on the official online papers as well, which are really quite accurate in terms of the way they ask questions in the UCAT exam. And you realize how time pressured those questions are. With UCAT, it's all about practice, practice, practice. One thing that I'd mention is definitely a resource called Medify. It's a really, really good resource for UCAT that loads of mentees have told me is really good for them, was really good for them and helped them achieve really high scores. Other websites are out there that have courses for UCAT that are paid for. Nothing that I've seen or my mentees go through, so I couldn't comment on that. However, those same websites and companies do have free online resources on their website, and a few of them have bursary systems as well, like a few of the companies out there. So definitely have a look for those things. But Medify is something that I definitely recommend to help you revise for UCAT as the main resource these days. And that's because my mentees have definitely recommended them and done really well with that. Brilliant. So Amy goes, oh, I also saw something about Northwestern Uni researchers 3D printing bioactive material to grow neuron in the lab from someone's own cells. Whoa, it could help Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. That is an incredible discovery if they can translate that into practice. Definitely, I think from creating neurons sounds a bit crazy, sounds a bit like sci-fi, but I think in practice, at least at the very early stages, what we can do is carry out scientific experiments on neurons if we can grow them in a petri dish or in the 3D printing bioactive material lab thing. I think that'd be really good. So that sounds like a promising start. Yes, and so Amy goes, yes, I agree with the distribution thing. In the ideal world, it would be great to distribute it equitably, but realistically, it's way harder said than done. And I think that's something that's Amy, that point is very interesting because I think what I've seen in global health and in medicine in general is that obviously we have the World Health Organization, which is supposed to be in charge of all the health in the world. However, they aren't voted into power, and they don't have actually any international law power. Like nothing they say can go into any laws in any countries. It's just advice that they give that governments can choose to follow or not. So, for example, during the pandemic, the WHO said a lot of things in terms of guidance that was very useful that maybe the US was not happy with and decided to say, no, we're not going to follow. And there was nothing WHO could have done about that because they don't have that much money or that much in terms of power or law enforcement or anything of the sort. So it's a very interesting field where WHO are in global health and in medicine. And it's sometimes very frustrating to see because obviously WHO sounds like such a huge organization, and they are, and they're incredibly powerful in their own right. However, against governments, it becomes frustrating when what they're saying isn't enacted on. And that's something that's an evaluation point when you talk about issues like this, the vaccination programs, and also the COVID pandemic response in general as well. Very key evaluation point. Okay, so we've got some questions coming in. Evie has asked, how long should we leave to revise for the UCAT BMAT? I said about 4 weeks. Should we do a lot of revision all in one block, like a month or two, or start early and do a bit little and often? No, I would encourage you to do a lot of revision more in one block. So I'd say in the first week of revision, you want to do like a few evenings. In the second week, you want to do every single evening. In the last 2 weeks before the exam, you want to be doing basically every day, every other day, like you'd revise for a normal exam. And it's all about practicing and getting that exam technique right and getting those timings right. So I'd say you kind of titrate up the work that you need to do. And I wouldn't encourage you to be working throughout the year for UCAT and then doing it. It's very much a practice-based exam, not anything to do with knowledge. So definitely that. And the BMAT, you don't really have time to revise for all year round for it. And you can use for the knowledge aspect in section 2, science and maths, you just need to go over the CGP revision guide in the lead up to the exam. Yes, so Amy goes, I think for UCAT, most people go very intense, very quickly, very right. Burnout is very a thing, and you don't want to peak before the exam. If you started now, you'd be at your best in April-ish, which is not ideal. Yes, Amy, I agree. I think burnout is definitely a thing, especially in UCAT, because of the type of questions they ask. They're not knowledge-based. They're all about you and making use of your work. Okie dokie. Thanks for joining us. We've got Yath, Anika, Haroon. You're very welcome, Evie. If you have any other questions, drop them below. We'll be answering them. Brilliant. I've got another question from Amy. Yes, I agree, Amy. BMAT burnout is possible. I think I peaked a couple of days before my BMAT and didn't do as amazing as I thought I wanted to, but I did all right. Yes, basically the short answer is yes, it is very similar, and it's all about practice, but not overdoing it and not overthinking things. And I think it just depends on your situation. Like I believe that you can peak too early before an exam, so it's important to revise to a certain amount and then do whatever work that you need to and to maintain it. But I think with BMAT and you don't have the times in the year to keep a constant workflow at it without having an impact in your own A levels and your other things that you do extracurricular for your personal statement. So yeah, I think that's answered that question. Hi, Medinotes. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you guys are doing good. Brilliant. Another aspiring medic has a question. Oh my God, another aspiring medic has asked a question that I think this week has really been in the back of my mind. I haven't been able to focus really that well. And so I've been trying to employ tactics to focus my brain. So I think before exams and stuff, to motivate yourself, I think sometimes the fear of failure is very much a thing that you can use to basically stop procrastinating. And I think that's something that I've used throughout my medical school years because I've been so scared about will I fail or will I not do too well. And so I was like, oh, that gets me out of bed in the morning, that little bit of stress. So a little bit of stress is always healthy to have that in the back of your mind, obviously not to overstress because that can debilitate you. I think anything that's helped me focus is very much scoping a subject and allocating how much in terms of in a week, having a rough plan of how much time I want to spend on a specific topic or subject or like rotation, and putting that alongside my extracurricular and placement activities and my personal time is how I try and basically timetable my days. And that's something that I personally like to do. I don't think everyone does, but I personally like to kind of timetable my day from, like, let's say if I start at 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning and then I finish out like whenever I go to bed. And I'd like to like put in when I'm going to go for lunch, dinner, have some chill time, when I'm going to be going through like neurology, when I'm going to be going through endocrinology, am I going to go through orthopedics in 2 days' time? Like, I need to have a real good plan of what my week is going to look like, my month is going to look like, and therefore my day. And so today, I mean, last week I have my finals exams coming up in just over 2 months, and so I sat down and basically figured out what my subject revision cycle is going to look like. So in one day I put a certain subject, and then I made sure that it was almost like active recall. Like, I'd go back to that subject in 1 to 4 weeks time, and I'd review it and all those topics and how I do that. So really good to have that plan to make sure that you're aiming for a goal and you've got the steps in place. Because I want, my brother has in his room something that goes, it says trust the process, and so that is my process, and I've trusted it for the last however many years I've been in education, and I've been doing okay. And so I think use whatever works for you and just tweak it. I think what's really important with focus is to have something to look forward to also at the end of the day or the next day or the end of the week. And that's something that I always have in the back of my mind. So whether that be Friday or Saturday evenings, I know I blocked out time for chilling with my friends or watching a movie, spending time with family, having Zoom calls, whatever it is. I have that to always look forward to. So I don't get bogged down by the amount of work I'm doing throughout the week, because I know that there's a prize at the end of it, which is really nice to have. Little things like I watch TV shows when I eat dinner or something. Again, something to look forward to at the end of the day. And it's little things like that that really help. I don't think you can be at 100 miles per hour 100% of the time. I think you just burn out in like 2 days, or it just doesn't work out. So don't be too hard on yourself. Another aspiring medic, I hope I have given you a rambly but a little bit of a few quirks in their answer. See what resonates with you. What do you do to help keep your focus? Another aspiring medic. I'd be interested. Maybe I could use it in my own work as well. And anything from what I said you might want to adopt. Have a look. Also, recently, in order to revise for my prescribing safety exam at the start of the month, I remember I used I used to do. I went on to study with me videos. I've never used this in my life, but it was really nice just to have like some other person studying with me, apparently with lo-fi hip hop beats in the background. So I don't know if that helps, and that helped me gauge how many hours I was putting towards work in a day and how much I was actually wasting. Because obviously with the YouTube thing, you can, if it's a 7-hour study with me video and I'm only 3.5 hours through after stopping it when I'm doing something, it tells me I've only done 3.5 hours work out of 7 hours, let's say, or something. So that's very nice to keep myself accountable. But yeah, cool. All right, the next question I have is from Ria. Hey, Ria. Do you want to give us a little wave if you're still on? How are you today? Any tips for the UCAT, especially abstract reasoning and verbal reasoning, and when do you advise to start prep for the UCAT? So I think I've just mentioned this already in this live session. I'd revise 4 weeks before the day of your exam and gradually increase the amount of work that you do every day towards the time of your exam. I would say abstract reasoning and verbal reasoning. Sorry, it's been 6-7 years, so I don't even know what that is anymore. I'm guessing abstract is where the shapes are, verbal is the words. I think I just found whatever the thing that looks like comprehensive reading, which I think might be verbal reasoning, was just very, very, very time pressured. So you need to get used to skim reading loads of stuff. And abstract reasoning is very much about recognizing patterns, right? And so it's more about practice and getting used to seeing those patterns, because it's a different way of asking you a question. It's like a proper aptitude test. My tips, I don't have any specific tips, but what I mentioned before is to use a resource called Medify that a lot of my mentees really found useful in the last 2-3 years and got really good UCAT scores from by using that in good amounts of practice. So I'd recommend doing that and seeing what they have to say about it. Hope I've helped with you there, Ria. Sorry I couldn't go in any further. Cool. All right, so I've got a very another experiment. Your questions are pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. So keep them coming. All right, so what you've answered, what you've already talked about before, good answer. Do basically the same. I have a daily list of tasks in order of priority, which means I don't have any kind of strict timetable to follow. Good. That works for you, and I think that I can see why that works. It breaks up your day. It doesn't mean you just have a whole bunch of time and you just got to allocate random stuff to it. I think that really helps breaking things down, and that works in revision, on daily life, and everything, which is good to hear. Okie dokie. So, just a reminder that Medmentor's got a website as well for you guys to have a look at, because we've got loads of blogs up there and loads of tips and revision stuff. So, loads of tips about stuff in general with the medical school application process, from UCAT, BMAT to interviews. So please have a look there, and please do share us with your friends. We'd really appreciate it. All right, so Amy goes, I used to hate study with me's, and now I have a playlist of them that's over 200 hours long. They're just so good. That playlist sounds brilliant. 200 hours. Oh my God. I'm just trying to think. I might, you know what? I might today, after this live, try and figure out how many hours I've worked a day for the last how many hours in total I've worked for medicine in the last 6 years. That's going to be very interesting to think about. Cool. So the question I've got from another aspiring medic is if you could design an intercalated degree, what would it be? First of all, let's throw that back at you. Is there another aspiring medic? Is there a degree that you really want to do that you don't seem to have ever found? I think from my point of view, I'd really have liked to see an intercalated degree in PPE. I know that UCL offer a master's in something similar to PPE for other medical students. Like, for example, I knew a friend at King's that did a master's in like health policy and care or something like that at UCL, or like politics and economics, and that's fine. But I think I would really like to do BSc PPE specifically, just because I really liked the breadth of that as a degree subject. That's very personal to me, just because it's politics, philosophy, and economics. And if you think about it, if you want to make wide scale, big impact in healthcare, you need politics, you need some ethics and philosophy and the way of thinking behind it, and you need economic value to it in order to make it feasible. And I think if clinicians could have that type of mindset and put kind of like taught to them, and being able to practice it themselves from a really early time in F1, we'd be able to start thinking about what we need to do to help improve the health system that we're part of, being the NHS. I think right now it's a shame that we only get considered to help the healthcare system or try take leadership opportunities when we're consultants or right at the end of right at the pinnacle or end of our careers. I think from an early stage, it's good to get people involved and have involvement, especially in the NHS, because before you become a consultant, you've now been part of the system, so you know how it works, and therefore it's harder for you to think outside the box. But whilst you come in as a medical student, as an F1, you feel very fresh. You feel like you've got new ideas, and you're not bogged down by the system because you don't know what the system fully is yet. So that's the best time to incorporate and have creativity of ideas to try and incorporate within a system. And it's good to nurture that throughout the years until you consult and so forth. So what I'd like to see is more leadership or like a white or like a broader issue impact type degrees. And for example, one was PPE here that I mentioned. But there's loads that are out there that you could want to do an intercalated degree on. And there's loads of science out there already, which is good. Loads of clinical stuff, get that in clinical years anyway. So that's a very good question, but I think that's my answer to it. I'm looking forward to your answer on that, another spine medic. Hey guys, thanks for joining. I see that Zava, Yatha, Rabi, Olive, you guys are all here. If you guys have any questions about the medical school applications process of what life is like as a medical student at UCL or like anywhere in general in the UK, please do drop them below. Feel free. It's a very friendly atmosphere we have in here, and feel free to contribute down below as well. It'll be great to have you guys on. Brilliant. All right, so Amy goes, I'm so down. I thought you meant personal protective equipment and was just sit here. Oh, but yes, so many people is that I think I remember before coming into, like, as soon as I wanted to do a BSc in global health, even before before I got into med school, I knew that in order to make large scale impact, you need to have that sort of background and need to think in a macro level. And that's something that loads of humanity degrees let you do, and that's really good to have. But the issue with us is that when we become medicals, we get into the medical field, we start subspecializing. We obviously have to look into the science well, and that's really good. But at the same time, I think we've had problems in the last few decades where not enough of us have been outspoken at the right times when there's been changes going on. We don't, whether that be patient care or our contracts or the healthcare system in general, and important to have good representation for our profession in journalism and in politics. Like, for example, our health secretary, in my opinion, and loads of people's opinions in hospital, should with a political background. It's very much a shame that we have a system where someone is a health secretary without having a health background at all. And you can really tell that from the policies that have been brought out in the past few decades, unfortunately. Okay, so, what a great question. I've applied to Cardiff and they have a very competitive clinical intercalated degree which focuses on emergency and pre-hospital medicine. Wicked. So I would absolutely love to see clinical intercalated degrees, maybe an intercalated degree with clinical placements and projects focused on maybe leadership and management. Another aspiring medic, that is a brilliant answer to the question. I think what I realized, I was at your point of view, especially early on, was thinking, why aren't there enough like clinical BScs? I think UCL had one clinical BSc out of so many, and I think there was only one other that included clinical aspects on their BSc. And what I realized was that it depended on when you went for that degree. So Imperial, for example, has a lot of clinical based BSc. And why they have that is because they finish 3 years of medical school and then they do their BSc. So that means they do 2 years preclinical. The third year is the first year of their clinical. So that gives them a good grounding before they do a clinical BSc. And therefore, they have more clinical BScs at Imperial than in other places. Whilst at UCL, for example, we only do 2 years preclinical and then So which means we don't have a grounding for clinical placement or clinical medicine. And because we don't have that grounding, we don't get offered many clinical placements. And even if we do in our BScs, it's very much more superficial. Rather than us getting involved, it's more about observing, which is fine, but it's more logistical in that sense. In other universities, you can intercalate it at the end of second, third, fourth year, and that's fine. I think so therefore you're having an opportunity to get that clinical experience. But I think more than anything with BScs, clinical experience is very hard to organize unless it's a vocational degree like medicine, nursing, and stuff, or physiotherapy. And I think that's what it's just logistically it's harder to do. But when you do get the chance to do them, it's pretty amazing. I think one thing that I found out was a lot of people who were in preclinical years were really not happy that they had only science-based, humanities-based BScs and not enough clinical work as well. However, one thing you got to know is that actually during the clinical years, you have so much exposure to so many different specialties. It's amazing the amount that you take in, and all the med schools are the same with amazing clinical placement, amazing doctors, loads of things to learn. And you normally have 3 years solidly, or across 5 years, you have loads of opportunities to get involved in clinical placement and do even more than just what you're allocated to. So that's one of the reasons why BScs in clinical medicine aren't even looked at as a necessity, but more like just supplementary. But that's fine. I mean, you got the rest of your clinical careers to do clinical medicine, I think. But I agree that BSc sounds so exciting, and I would definitely be looking into that if I were you as well. Yath goes, yes, I've always wondered why a health secretary isn't chosen based on who has a medical background. It seems so simple, yet we don't have it. I think the same goes for our educational secretary. There's how many like tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands teachers out there that I'm sure some will be interested in politics and want to do something with that. But they can't become education secretary because that's on right now. And these are things that I think that are very much a shame, and something to think about in the future, I think, for the next generation of medical students going through. Okay, I see your questions coming in. I'm going to answer a few more things. Coolest or weirdest elective placements you've heard of? That's super interesting. Oh, you're bringing up something that's really close to my heart right now. It's so sad. I had an elective planned in Tanzania. I would have hopefully been going in like a month, but because of COVID, as everything shut down. So my elective placement is at A&E in central London, which is fine, but I didn't know I'd be happy about that. 6 years ago, I remember when I applied to school, the thing I was looking forward to the most is not graduating, because I want and make everyone proud with that. And also at the same time, the elective placement was something I was definitely looking forward to, going on basically holiday and experiencing cultures that were different to mine and doing work in those hospitals amongst these cultures, like in these countries, would have been amazing. I think South America seems like one of the most amazing places to go in general when it comes to elective experiences, and a lot of people do go there. I think developing countries in general are just a completely different atmosphere in terms of healthcare system. I'd always encourage people to go and observe there what things are going on and what to learn from developing countries, as well as what the circumstances actually are. But yeah, that's from an impact perspective. In terms of coolest, otherwise, yeah, I think there's a few YouTubers out there. I think Extra Source used that medic went to South Africa for his elective placement, and he saw trauma and orthopedic surgery there. That is a really, really popular elective placement because of the fact that there's such just crazy trauma stuff coming through that you won't see anywhere else in the world. So that's definitely that in South Africa. Similar to South America. In terms of weirdest, I don't think I have. If you ever see anyone with the weirdest elective placements, do let me know. I mean, you can go to places like, Jersey, which is in England, and you can go to like a GP practice or a hospital, then you can do elective there. I think elective placements are tricky because you can't really have something too weird, because if you do, you're not really satisfying clinical medicine priorities. Like, for example, a lot of medical schools frown on you doing a elective in purely radiology because it doesn't seem to be clinical enough, even though it's a medical specialty. That's quite interesting. So that's something for you to bear in mind as well. Cool. All right. Then next, yeah. So I think KMYL Kimil has said a lot of people point out the negative side of medical society. Example, social and study time imbalance. But what are the good points to going into med? I think that's the first time someone has asked me what are the good points of getting into med school, as opposed to what are the bad points. So thank you. I appreciate it. I think the answer to that is there's so many facets. I think yeah. So I think I'm reconnecting there. So there's so many aspects to that question that you've asked, Kimmo. So are you still there, Kimmo? Do you want to give me a hello? So what do you think? Why do you want to go to med school? Is what I'd ask you. So I'd like to see a comment from you there if you can. No worries if you can't. From my point of view, I'll tell you right now, I've done 6 years of med school and I don't regret it at all. I really enjoyed myself and have an amazing experience. Of course, there have been very low points and very, very high points, but that comes with anything I think worthwhile. And one thing I realized with medicine and having friends in loads of different fields, like whether teaching, people going through vocational routes, not university, what I realized or going into business or entrepreneurship is that whatever's worthwhile in your career or in your life in general, it's the hard work that gets you there. And whatever it is that is worthwhile, you're going to be working hard. So I think that study time, I think, is important to take with a pinch of salt, because I remember went to med school when I was in year 12. All my friends were like, oh my God, like what we in year 13, they're like, oh my God, you're going to be in med school for like 5-6 years. Some people at 7-8 years or something. I don't know what's going on. But then actually, like a lot of the times degrees are 3 years long, and then people do masters or do years abroad or take years out. That can equate to 4, 5, 6, 7 years even as well. People do PhDs. It's common to do graduate degrees as well. And like for example in law, which is another competing like a kind of field, that's kind of a barrier to get into. I think you have to do loads of like a 1 to 2 year course. You have to pass exams. Like a lot of these professions that are seen as traditional professions have a lot of barriers to entry. So I would take that with a pinch of salt. I think that was just some caveats that I'd like to say. And I think there's a few. I think it'd be such a respectable job, and I really do want to learn about it, or I find it quite fascinating. Yes. I think if you get an MBBS, which is a degree for being a doctor, no matter what field you go into, whether that be in medicine or let's say even in business, right? Which is almost the opposite, I think. You get a bit of credibility of the fact that you've actually dedicated 6-7 years of your life to help for the study of people and how people work, which is very difficult, and therefore you have a lot of high level skills and knowledge and processes, and are quite intelligent in that sense and academically bright. And that's what all employers and people look for in someone that they want to bring in. So whether that be in medicine or something else entirely, medical degree can you like go into business, you can use that, you can do what you like with it. So I think more than anything is amazing to have because of the access to anything and everything, not just medicine, because of the high level skill that you're taking forward. I think one thing for everyone here to know is that your your degree in general isn't about what you know. It's about it's not about what you know. It's about what the degree is about. What you know. Yeah, it's about what skills you took from the degree that you can then apply. So for an employer, they're looking for someone who's intelligent, who can work under pressure, who's got a lot of aspects to their game, and that's what they're looking for. Hence why a medical degree is amazing to have. Obviously, there's also so many other advantages. I think things that people talk about the fact that you can actually hopefully make a difference to the person in front of his life, and you can see that in real time in practice a lot of the time. I think in loads of careers, especially macro level changes, it's hard to see that individual impact that you have on someone. Let's say, for example, in politics, if you're making a difference to thousands of people's lives, it's hard to sometimes see that impact unless you leave that office and go to speak to them one-to-one. Whilst as a doctor, you get to see that every day. And therefore, for you personally, I think job satisfaction is 100. I hope people have been able to take a few things from that, just my thought process. Cool. Okay, Amy's got a simple question here. At the end of the interview, at the do you have any questions part, is it good to ask something even if you have no questions? I've heard some people say always ask, and others say everything should be on the uni's website, so it's very conflicting. Basically, Amy, don't need to ask any questions if you don't want to. Simple as that. I've had this question asked by numerous mentees, and I've asked myself so many times as well. You only ask a question if you actually want to. Therefore, most of the time you won't be asking the question because you already know what's going on here and you've got loads of stuff. So you can just answer it like this. Like when they ask you, do you have any questions? I was like, no, I'm all right, thank you. I spoke to people at the med school already at the open day, or I looked at the website before I came and had a good research or something. Or just leave it and just move on. Don't worry, you're not going to be rejected or accepted to med school based on that. So don't worry at all. Cool. Hope I've cleared that one up. So I've got a very interesting question from Ria and another interesting question from Yaf. So you guys don't go away anywhere. We are still here. Do you guys give us a thank God it. I like that gold there. What specialty are you thinking of after F1, F2? Thank you for that question. It's quite nice to have questions about medicine stuff sometimes. I forget I'm a medical student sometimes. The specialty I'm looking into going into is actually GP. One of the main reasons why is because it's very general, and I feel that I'm someone who has a wide variety of interests. And I haven't seen anything in medical specialties at the moment that really jumps out for me and goes, whoa, I really want to dedicate my life to that. I think I've generally been a generalist in like school to daily life stuff to like now in medicine. And I really want to make a difference to people in front of me and get to know them. And I think as a GP, for basically being a family medical practitioner here, you get to see that, see your patient and you see them regularly, you build rapport. And that's what I saw in work experiences before I applied. That's what I saw when I got in. I had some really great DP tutors and teachers that have been really lovely to me and shown me how incredible you could be at this job. And I think a lot of the time it's like school and subjects. A lot of the time the reason why you really love the subject is because of the teacher and the way they teach it to you. And I think it's very similar when it comes to medical specialties, is that what rubs off on you is the doctors that you come into contact with. And I had GPs, they've been amazing to me. And I think that's what I want to look forward to. I've done some research into some GP stuff as well, with the Royal College of GPs and widening participation. And that's like really made me think about things outside of the GP world, in terms of practicing, in terms of outside as well. And one thing that I realized is that you can work, you can include your other interests as well, along with your career. So you can do that with hospital medicine as well. I think for me though, personally, I think it'd be very much of a push and it would be very much more difficult. So I do have a keen interest in medical health and in global health, in medtech, in like loads of other things that I have in terms of projects. And so I'd like to pursue those things, even as a working adult, I guess. And so I think that would give the flexibility with GP. I had also thought about pediatrics very much so. I really love pediatrics a lot, but I think the specialty training program was very just too tricky for me in my head, with the very long hours and I think unsociable hours at some points with the night shifts. So it's good to think about these things. And I think when I was in year 12, 13, I was like, if someone was talking about work-life balance, I was like, shut up, man. Why are you going to talk about that? Like, just work is calm. Like, that's life. But no, I think it's really good to think about work-life balance. Caveat to all of this as well, half the medical school students in the country become GPs. That's a normal thing. Medicine is amazing. If I had the guts to go through surgical training, I would do so. I read a book recently called The War Doctor, and I've obviously being involved in humanitarian work, I've seen things like what difference a surgeon can really make in a patient's life. So it's amazing to see how you could be a surgeon and humanitarian at the same time, which is always good to me. But yeah, sorry for us babbling on, but hopefully that's given you some sort of insight how medical specialties work in general, how people go around thinking about what they want to do. What are your thoughts right now of what you want to do in the future as a specialty? Yeah, go for it. Hey, Amy, thank you for your comment. Just saw it. You'd be an amazing GP. That's the most nice thing ever. Really appreciate that. Hopefully I will be a good GP at some point. And see those patients soon. All right, another aspiring medic has asked a few questions. I'm going to chase them up in just a second. What shocked you the most about med school that you didn't expect as a sixth form student? Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you here. The thing that shocked me the most is the amount of work that is needed to go through medical school. It's immense. I'm not going to lie to you. So I think I think it works both ways. I think the amount of work that we got for medical school was so much. I don't think you can fathom it in A level because you've only done a level sort of work. But at the same time, I think the flip side to it is I didn't realize that even though there was so much work, I could actually do so much outside of medicine in university and extracurricular stuff alongside of it. So it's twofold. The fact, and it seems almost juxtaposed, like you can't have both, but you can. So I'll give you an example, right? So the first lecture we had at med school was some crazy stuff. Like it was so scary how much work, how many words were chucked at us, and I didn't understand anything. And I think I'll sum it up. You know how there's like a chapter in a biology textbook? So in my biology textbook, I think I had like 11 chapters, right? I think I could quite safely say to you, 11 chapters worth of, not 11, let's say 5 or 6 chapters worth of content would be given to me in 20 minutes of a lecture out of a 1-hour lecture. So that tells you a lot about how much madness there is in medicine. But one thing to bear in mind is that medicine is very much more superficial. We're not going into real in-depth science stuff. And I think that's a mindset change that everyone needs to have when they get into med school. And so there's just vast amounts of information that you need to have in your head and problem solve and get your head around and stuff and learn. But it's a lot more about memorizing that via understanding it and being able to go back to first principles, and then being able to apply that to questions and clinical scenarios. Don't worry, I think the dropout rate for medical school is like less than 1%. So don't worry, you're not gonna fail. Once you get in, you're very much more likely to just get on with it and get through it. But it's caveated in that like you learn, that's chucked at you in the lecture. So that 20 minutes worth of work in a lecture, you're not going to put in your head in that 20 minutes. Then you're going to go home and in that lecture that 1 hour lecture, you're going to go over it again. That's going to take you 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes. And then you revise it a couple of months later. That'll take you a couple of hours, and then you revise it again. So it's like cycles of revision that build up, and then you'll be ready for the exam and to practice it. So I think that's very specifically about the science part of medicine. I think that's the difficult part. But at the same time, probably it was good for me not to know that there was so much work coming for me, because obviously A-level was peak enough as it was. But so don't worry, A-level is still difficult. For whatever situation you're in, things are always difficult, but it just gets harder. But one thing that's great about medical school is that you actually find time because about what you want to do and your interests in life in general, and you start working smarter rather than hard. You find out what you need to know, what you don't need to know. Well, in A-level, I think a lot of the time you're just kind of waffling about and putting everything in your head. You become very much more selective about important points that will help you become a good doctor, help you pass, help you become safe. And those are the things. Remember, in A-level, you guys are aiming for like 80% plus, like 90%. In medical school, you're aiming for passing, and then from there on in, you can do as much as you like. I think passing normally is like 50%. So I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah, sorry, I spilled the tea there. I hope I haven't scared you guys too much. A lot of content, but if I can get through it, I'll tell you right now, you guys definitely can. And I'm someone who, I'll be honest with you, doesn't really like science that much. I definitely like the humanities and the people stuff, and the clinical side of medicine much more than the science stuff. So if I could get through it, you definitely can. Loads of communication skills, loads of patient interaction and people stuff. This career is definitely worth it. Don't let me put you off. I'm sorry already. All right, good. All right, let's answer some few more questions. All right, guys, we've got 5 minutes left. If you have any questions remaining, please drop them on the question box right now. If you don't, no worries at all. If you come across that you have for me, please do let me know next week when I'll be on at 6 p.m. again on Saturday, and we'll be able to answer these questions. So let me answer these last questions. Another aspiring medic has asked a brilliant question again. When was yeah, another aspiring medic. I think a lot of the times when people go to uni, they forget about the part where they actually have to do some studying, and the reason why is because I think in uni, especially in the first few years, you don't really want to study, and you put the bad things behind in your head, and you just think about the amazing thing. So in my head, I thought uni was just chilling, vibes, and friends, but it's higher education at the end of the day, isn't it? All right. So another aspiring medic goes, when was the first time you felt like you were actually a med student, or multiple times? Ooh, that is a wow, wicked question. Okay, so I will be honest with you. The first time I felt like I was a medical student, not a preclinical medical student revising for science stuff, which is what a UCL degree is like. It's more preclinical, then it's separated. I think if you go to other med schools like Liverpool or St. George's, they have a very integrated curriculum and they have medical school day placements from day one. So you could feel like a student from day one properly with a stethoscope around your neck and going to see patients. But two times for me, I felt like I was like, whoa, I'm a medical student. How? First time was was actually when I went abroad on a kind of humanitarian trip. So I'm part of the MAR charity, and we provide antenatal care checkups and maternal health camps in rural villages of Bangladesh every 2 to 3 months. And at that time, it was a summer at the end of my second year, and I had flown out with the MAR UK team to meet the Bangladesh team there and to carry out health checks and help out in those camps for a couple of weeks. And in that time, I was doing blood pressures, I was doing urine dips, I was doing taking histories in Bengali because I know it, and I was helping the doctors out there that were there. I was under their work and just helping them with like healthcare assistant type of jobs. And in that time, I was like, okay, wow, like this is what. So in that time, I'd learned how to do blood pressure, urine dip. I knew how to do what was the other thing that I did? Yeah, and blood glucose. And those are things that I'd learned in first and second year clinical skills at med school. And I was like, whoa, like I learned that like last year in clinical skills room, and now I'm in rural Bangladesh helping to treat these mothers for their pregnancies and screening them with these doctors. Whoa, I'm a medical student, and I think that really sunk in. And I was at a point at the end of my second year, which was a very grueling scientific year without any patient contact. I started to get disillusioned with medicine a lot. And I think that experience in those health camps really grounded me to make me realize, whoa, like this is why I'm doing medicine, and to treat those people in front of me. And this is the good I can do in this world with this job. And it gives me goosebumps even to this day when thinking about it, because it's one of those things it's one of those memories that I have to motivate me almost every day, to every week, to every month when I think about medicine and why I'm going through med school. Medical school is really, it's really important to kind of realign your intentions about why you're doing it and re-motivate yourself. And that is certainly why, and that's something I think about. And the second time I was like, whoa, I'm a real medical student, was in my clinical year. It was the first day. We go on the ward, first day of our first clinical year. And we go on the ward with a few of my friends who are very good friends of mine now, but they used to, we were a small group that were being taught by a consultant. We were like, let's go and take history from this patient. And I remembered the patient and what symptoms they had, and the fact that they were telling us a story for about 1.5 hours. And instead of us asking the questions in 10 minutes, I was there for 1.5 hours just still answering questions and talking to them. It was just real chit chat. I was like, whoa, this is what medicine is about, isn't it? Like this is the human aspect and the interaction that you have. So that was in my clinical year, and I had my stethoscope around my neck, and I was walking around all smart. So yeah, thank you for that question. That made me reflect quite deeply, I think. And hopefully you got some things to look forward to, another aspiring medic, when you finally start med school and have some fun, I guess. And your last question, I think I'll answer, is what are you thinking of? Are you thinking of maybe doing an FY3? And my answer to that question is yes. I am thinking of doing an FY3, potentially even an FY4. I have a few interests outside of medical school of medicine that I want to pursue. I want to maybe do some locuming and get some experience in some other aspects of medicine as well. Very like loads and loads of different things that you can clearly see are in the random bits of my head that I want to try out before I commit to a lifelong career of medicine, and use that almost as a platform for maybe greater impact stuff. So yes, very much looking forward to taking the FY3, maybe traveling a little bit, seeing as I don't have an elective. And I encourage you guys to think about it, even this early stage. It's a great time to be an F3. I think 60% of the workforce after F2 become F3s now. So that's something to think about. And you can do teaching and you can do loads of other things in that time. Yes, Amy, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, very much a plot twist from the work that you do. As you can clearly tell, the low points in my medical school career is the moment when I realize, oh my God, there is so much work that I need to do. And then the high points are like, oh my God, I'm actually working and using the stuff that I've spent so many years dreading about, actually using it to help people. So when you put it that way, it's not all too bad. But it's so much harder. It's so much easier said than done, I think. Yes, so exciting. And yes, definitely looking for, have a think in this week, another aspiring medic, if you haven't already, of what you'd like to do in your FY3 year. Maybe we can talk about options for people that want to take gap years, FY3 years, BSc years, loads of random little gaps that you can take, and that'll be cool. And yes, got to get into med school first. I'm sure you'll do it. And if there's a will, there's a way. Okie dokie, that has been a brilliant session. You guys have been super lovely to me. Thank you so much for your questions. I really, really appreciate it. Another aspiring medic, Kamali, I think that's your name. Yath, Caitlin's here, Amy's here. You guys have been super lovely. You guys have been asking some really insightful questions. Hopefully, I provide some insight to you guys about the application process, stuff about med school and med life in general that I don't think you can normally get unless you're in med school or in this sphere. So hopefully it puts me in a unique position to help you guys there. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Well, last thing I'd like to say is have a look at the Medmentor website whenever you guys want to have a look at any tips or any things in general. I'm always here for troubleshooting stuff. So drop me a question, 6 p.m. every Saturday. I'm here to answer your questions to help you guys get into med school. I'm sure you guys will, and that'll be brilliant. And yes, Amy goes right. FY3 sounds amazing, and it's supposed to be it's so much less stress to build up your portfolio and do the exams. Yes, let's not even get into postgrad exams yet. We'll talk about that next time, I guess. I'd love to go to Australia. That would be wicked. I think Amy, you should. I think another aspiring medic, you should definitely do that. Amy goes, then again, you should probably try to survive year 12 first. Yeah, you will. I'm sure you will. All right. Well, guys, thank you guys so much. Good luck with the rest of the week and whatever work you guys have going on. Keep yourself motivated. I'll be back here next week to answer your questions and hope to see you then as well. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you guys. And I'll leave it there. See you guys later. Take care. See you next week, Amy.